Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Orion Group Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Dunn, and I'm here tonight, Wednesday, as usual, with my amazing co-host, Miss Elizabeth Stone. Elizabeth, what's up, man?
You know, just living the dream here.
Living the dream, man. It's the show post-Valentine's Day. I actually forgot about that, man. Hope you guys had a good Valentine's Day, because most likely if you didn't, it's because you're not listening to us, or you're not listening to Elizabeth. So
it's an excellent plug. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
So yeah, maybe you're a little bit more keen now because you realize that you don't know everything, right? No, it's fine.
I just appreciate that you're here, no matter how your Valentine's Day was.
Are you a Valentine's Day person? I know there's a lot of women who are actually like anti-Valentine's Day now. Are you an anti-Valentine's Day?
I've had, actually, as I wrote my list, I wrote them on Valentine's Day as I do. And I've had every kind of Valentine's Day. I've been proposed to on Valentine's Day. I've been very unhappy on Valentine's Day. I've had every kind.
Probably good. I think it's good for you for every person to have each one. So, seems like it's important. We don't have any illusions about it. It's really just about who you're with and the kind of time you have. But I don't really, I have a good time. I believe it.
But what it is that I am most concerned about my people at that time, because I know that people are unhappy. Like, people in my world are generally working on getting things going better. Right. And so it can be a very sad time, and like most of the divorces happen in January. So most people find out that it's over in January, and then we have Valentine's Day, which is right afterwards.
Wow, I did not know that. That's messed up.
Yeah, and so in my world, like, I'm used to this being a kind of a tense time. I get a lot of emails right now. I get a lot of sad contacts from people, and then we start to like have spring, and it all starts to work out. So around this time, I'm always on kind of like relationship death watch, unfortunately.
Wow. Well, I feel bad for bringing that up. Now,
No, don't. I mean, I'm not talking about myself. I'm just talking about in general. It's most of all of the breakups and all of that. There's a big chart that I have actually that starts in October, and it peaks right before Thanksgiving, and then there's another peak before Christmas, and then there's the third and final peak right around now, because people either don't have the Valentine's Day they want, they hope for something else, and then they kind of make big decisions around this time.
Right. Well, like I said, I did not know that. So, for all I understand cuffing season. I know we talked about those type of terms. I think cuffing seasons are like around this time too, winter time. So Absolutely. I get it, But like, again, hopefully we can say something and reveal certain things that will hopefully help make your next one a little bit better, regardless of if you're with someone or not, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you guys so for tuning in, man. We really appreciate it. You can go to our website, theoriongroupodcast.com. You can check all our stuff there. But tonight, really what I want to talk about, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to tell you guys a story. It's not even a complicated one. Actually, something happened to me today that was kind of weird, but for some reason I think it's important. Have you ever heard those experiences?
All the time. Yes, absolutely.
So I went to the grocery store today. Usually I go to a grocery store on Wednesdays, and I went to the grocery store and I started shopping or whatever. And I would, go down each aisle or whatever. And so the first aisle, I wouldn't say ran into this woman, but almost ran into this woman, right? And so it was kind of like, no, my bad, whatever. And so I went down the second one, there she was again. I went down the third one, there was she again. I went to the meat part, and there she was again. So it was like everywhere I went, this woman was there. And it wasn't intentional, right? And it wasn't intentional on her part. And then I went to go check out, and then the checkout one I was going to go into, she shut off her little light. So letting you know that her lane was closed. I was like, oh. So I went to the next one that was open. Of course, who's there right in front of me? This woman. And we just kind of laughed about it because, and I was just like, stop stalking me type of thing. I said something like that. But it was interesting because I realized that what stuck out to me anyways was the fact that nothing about that was intentional, but yet our paths kept crossing.
Yeah.
And so what came to my mind was just like, you don't have to force it.
Oh, that's true.
And so that's what kind of hit me. And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, is not forcing things.
Okay.
Because that situation, why it was significant, because it was almost like you couldn't have made that happen even if you wanted to.
Right.
Even
if you'd been following her throughout the store, it would have been less easy.
Right, less easy. It wouldn't have even lined up that way. Like even if that was intentional, it wouldn't have gone that smoothly. And so it was just kind of, like I said, I kind of laughed about it because I realized that me just going about my business, her just going about her business, but somehow almost perfectly our paths kept crossing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a good show for post Valentine's Day, because when you are upset or when you're not in your relational situation or dating situation that you want to be in, it's just like clockwork or just human nature for us to almost want to take more control to kind of make things happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And I really want to make sure that you're going to have a discipline about this because one of the hardest things to do is get your needs met the right way.
Oh, is that ever true? Yes.
I mean, even when you talk about like religion and we're talking about the devil, right? As a Christian, you talk about the devil and this proverbial devil, but it's become this almost like nebulous, thing that just evil being that just wants to do evil and harm or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But, realistically, if the devil could kill you, he would. Right? So if he really had a plan, it would be to get you to get your needs met the wrong way. That's all sin is. Like when you hear sin, for all you non-religious people, that's really all sin is getting a legitimate need met in an illegitimate way. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a little crash course on Christianity for your, or just for religion, just for religion in general. And so one of the toughest things that you're going to have to do just in life in general, but especially in this arena, especially in the area of relationships, is being able to stay disciplined, stable enough to make sure that you are getting your legitimate needs met in a legitimate way. Because I'm telling you, once that hunger kicks in, and maybe this even could be a subtopic and just talking about hunger, because I think a lot of times we really underestimate that hunger, right? And I know we talked about in previous shows, we kind of hit on fasting a little bit and why that's important. So you can get a reference point for lack, a reference point for going without, and why that's so important, why that's actually a real big spiritual principle, or why it could be. And, even health people, a lot of people who are just health, there's intermittent fasting, and that's become a new craze now, right? In terms of a diet. Yeah. But fasting is very important because there's other than sex, I don't think there's a stronger primal urge that we have other than hunger. All right, because we have to live and and thirst. You can put thirst in there as well. But there is an emotional hunger and there is an emotional thirst. And that's when we hear about most, like online, when people are calling each other thirsty and you say this person's thirsty or whatever. They're in need of something so badly that they're acting in a way that isn't ideal, to put it nicely. Right? Yeah. They're putting themselves in situations that aren't great because they're in such need of whatever it is. The problem is a lot of the times we attack the need, but the need is never the problem. The need is 98.6% of the time a legitimate need. It's legitimate for you to be hungry for natural food. Right? It's legitimate for you to want or need affection, attention, love, run down the list. All of those things are legitimate. Attention is a legitimate need. So I want to make sure that we all understand that the need is never really the problem in terms of it being being legitimate. It's okay and even if I don't think it's okay, you're still going to have it regardless. Right. So I want to make sure that we're not, we got to stop attacking people's need, because the need is legitimate. That's not the problem. But it's how we go about getting it met, and it's how we get ourselves into positions where we're not able to get it met is where the battle lies, so to speak.
Well, I think also another thing about needs is what we tell ourselves is going to happen to us if we don't get them met, and what they mean and why they're important. Because I can legitimately want affection. I can legitimately want attention from you. But if I tell myself that I don't get it, what all of this stuff about how this is my needs and I'm not getting them met, I mean, it's like you're dying outside in the desert, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm like, this is a need, I am not getting this met in this relationship, this is not happening for me, and now as a result, I have to, transform everything. When I could tell myself, well, this is a want right now, and let me see how I can meet this, then you're going to be in a less needy position no matter what, which is going to make you more attractive. So in my world, it's desires and requirements. I require food. Do I need food? Well, I'm going to feel really bad if I tell myself I need it. But if I require it, then okay, that's all right. Like it sounds like a language trick, and it is to some extent, but it also kind of lays bare the idea that we have to go to other people to get our needs met, which becomes a real problem when those other people just don't behave in the way that we were hoping for, or we have no success in controlling them because they won't meet our needs. Nobody buys needs. Nobody's out there. Like, if you're selling your needs, nobody wants them. Like, why aren't you meeting my needs? I mean, can you think of anything more desperate to say to somebody? Like, you're not meeting my needs. Well, the other person's going to be like, well, that's too bad. Like, I guess I just suck then. I mean, there's no way to get your needs met by believing that you have a deficit that you need curing. So, desires and requirements, because then we can go to different sources to get our requirements met. We can go to different locations in order to succeed at, getting our strokes or whatever it is that we want.
All right. And this is why we talk about the two operating systems so much, because this is exactly what Elizabeth is talking about. Because what Elizabeth does really well is helping people, specifically women, get out, not so much get out, but I guess get out of that instinctual primal mode into the conscious mode, right? And we talk about the instincts and the primal nature so much because those are where those questions are being asked. Those are where that's the area where we are feeling like if we don't get this need met, we're going to die. Because at one point we did.
Right. And we go to each other for resources.
Right.
Men do not go to women for resources generally. Women go to men for resources.
Right.
So therein lies the problem. If you're like with a man and you're telling yourself that you need all of these things that you're not getting, you're going to have a hard time being attractive.
And this is, again, if you get this, it's like the core when you're working out. Like for everybody who's worked out and had a trainer, or even just watched YouTube videos, one of the most common themes and things that they talk about is getting your core activated and getting it stronger. Because you have to get your core strong in order to pretty much do every other exercise correctly. Right. And to me, this is what this is in the area of relationships and just romantic love in general, is that we have to get the core of understanding of our different natures. Because when you understand what is coming from where, you'll much better be able to manage them. Because,
yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to our primal instinctual nature, it is very good at what it does because it's only job is to make sure we survive and then our children survive for the next generation. Like,
doesn't care if we're happy, doesn't care if we are fat, skinny or in the middle. It doesn't care. It just cares that we make it.
It just cares that we make it. And it's good that we have an operating system where its only job is to do that. Because if we did not have that, then we would have to be thinking about this, considering this all day, every day. We would get nothing done. We definitely are not building modern societies. We're not past the Ice Age because we wouldn't have any other time to think about anything else.
Yeah, it's like not having running water, essentially.
Right. But understand this nature is subconscious. It's instinctual, which means that it happens without you thinking about it. It's where proclivities come from. Right. It's where most women are going to want a taller guy. Why? Right. That's where that comes from. Why do men like certain body types or certain, hips being and all that kind of stuff? There's certain things that we have a proclivity towards because historically over the span of human history, certain things have been better for, again, our survival and the survival of our children. Right. A man with resources, if you could connect the women who connected with men with resources, their children lived.
Right. Very simply.
We can go into a whole evolutionary psychology breakdown of it. But on the most basic form, that's where this stuff comes from. Taller men, stronger men, their children lived. Right. Women with bigger hips, they were able to bear healthy children. This is where this stuff comes from. And so when you start to understand that, you are able to do what Elizabeth just said. You're able to take those nagging questions, those proclivities you have to think that if this need doesn't get met, then it's over with. Yes, that tension, that stress, that exactly what is supposed to be happening, but it's not supposed to be running you completely. And
right.
Go ahead.
Well, in this modern time, it's not like we constantly have to worry about the same things that our body's really made to worry about.
Right. That's a huge issue. The fact that it was never dreamed of that we would be at a time like this, that we would not need to go hunting for our food, that we would we would have modern medicine. And we're having problems because people are living too long right now. Not that they're not living long. You had 30, 40 years for most of human history, right? Now we're having 70, 80, 90-year-old people, and that's our normal. And so, people are struggling to take care of their parents. We're having a lot of problems just as a result of we've mastered our environment so well.
Right.
That it was a lot of these instincts are almost archaic, right? They're outdated. It's just a simple fact that we just did what humans do. And we were so good at actually doing what we do that it kind of put us in a weird conundrum of where do these instincts do now? What do they have to do? Because they're always going to be doing something. And right now, what they seem to be really affecting us really greatly is our connection with each other. Because a lot of these things that would have made perfect sense when we had to literally go out and hunt, when we literally had a lot of these, archaic, things that we had to deal with for literal survival. Now, our instincts don't have to do that anymore. So now they're just purely almost being completely directed at our relationships, because those are the only things that are really still just as close to being like they were for all of millennia or all of
right. Well, and the other thing is we're wired for anxiety. So what we're going to do with our relationships is pick them apart. Because in that place where we have free floating anxiety that has to attach to something, and people disagree. There's a point of disagreement about this, but I believe that sometimes this anxiety is just a thing that is in our brain that's going on. And then our thoughts are kind of a result that are attached to it. And so, like, whatever plane you're on has different thoughts. Like, if you are in like a more anxious state of mind, you're going to continue to look for threat. So what is this threat? What is this threat? What is this threat? Then you remove a threat, like say the relationship goes away, or there's, a reason why everything gets good, for example. Well, then, like, that anxiety will then travel to a different thing, if you've noticed. It's like kind of whack-a-mole with the feelings. It's like, since the energy is never displaced, there's some new thread that we then have to worry about after the original one is taken care of. So the danger is that we, like, pick at the relationship, then go away, then pick at another relationship, then quit that relationship, then find another one. And the whole time we're telling ourselves that it's because we're broken or we're flawed or something's wrong or this is about me and my attractiveness or how there's just nobody on Tinder that likes me or whatever. But then if you solve that problem, you will find a new thing to be anxious about because of the way that our brain looks for threat.
Right. Anxiety has helped us survive.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's what has kept us on our toes for so long, because we had to be on our toes because a tiger could come and just take your child if you weren't,
Right.
alert. Right. I mean, you had to be alert for threats from some other kingdom coming and invading yours and killing all your men and enslaving all your women and children. I mean, there's been legitimate threats that our brain has evolved to make sure that we are consistently, on awareness, because for most of human history, we've had to be. But now that most threats, no one is really in any immediate threat in modern society, right? And I don't want to, I can go different places with that, but we'll just, for the sake of this conversation, we'll just stay here.
Right. Well, and we'll, stay with the fact that we've mastered our environment so well. So we're talking about evolutionary threat.
Right.
Let's not talk about other people threat right now, because then we could talk about how, like, the streets could, or whatever. But we're actually living at the safest time in history.
In history, the longest living longevity. I mean, yes, we are living in abundance right now. I mean, it's insane if you really think about it from an evolutionary,
Yeah, we've done great.
We've done
in a very short time too.
In a very short amount of time. And so again, it's almost like our brains are going to have to evolve again, but we're not there yet, obviously.
Well, it's true.
And so it's going to have to go through that process again, because it needs to adjust to where we are now. But evolution is very slow.
It is. Well, and the other thing is that all of this anxiety and depression that people are experiencing, and legitimately experiencing it, it's not a joke. It's not happening to people, but that's killing people off. Like that as a societal, like, problem is going to create a new group of people that somehow are able to adapt to that and somehow have that not take them down.
Right. And like I've said this before, one of the things in coming into this space, the one thing that stood out to me more than anything was the fear, was the anxiety. Like, to me, that was very evident. Like, to me, I was like, man, these people are just so afraid. Like, they're just so anxious. They're so they don't have any peace about this. Like, they're trying to get something that they're so uncomfortable about and so fearful about. And they're doing everything they can to get them into a place where they can just feel some kind of safety. You know what I mean? And so that was really, that kind of, threw me off a little bit, but it makes sense. I get it, and it makes sense from a lot of different ways and a lot of different places. But when you start talking about not forcing things, I'm so glad we were able to talk about anxiety first, because that really is a bedrock. Because when you're talking about people forcing things, anxiety is the fuel for that.
Right.
A lot of the times, obviously, but we have to understand that we need to take those anxieties, and they don't get to run us. And I know that's easier said than done, but it really is making that transition from your instinctual to your more conscious mind. Because like Elizabeth just told you, you have to stop, and you have to think that through. You have to tell yourself, is this really, I know I'm not going to die if I don't get married by 25.
Right.
You have to, sometimes you really do have to say stuff like that outside. And what Elizabeth said about requirement, the difference between having a requirement, it's those type of that type of teaching, those type of tools that we have to use, because again, this stuff is killing us. And
It is.
you want to think it's about, people just not being cute enough or not being having rich and all these silly things that people keep saying over and over again. We're putting billions of dollars into making us look better. Right? We look better. We feel worse. But we look better.
You're beautiful while you're dying.
Right.
God, you're just a fetching little specimen.
Right. I guess it's, and this is what's happening because you're just like, so what's going on? Right? How do we get to a place? Because again, when it comes to your core, it's a level of stability that you're going to have to be able to date in a way that's going to be healthy and efficient for you. Because so many of us are dating just from a place of lack and scarcity, that there's no way you're going to bring anything positive into your life. There's no way you're going to get into a place where you're able to really, like Elizabeth talks about in the name of her course, manifest love.
Right. Well, and you're just going to continue to like rubber stamp the little shadow beliefs that you have all over. So if you are in there like secretly thinking that you don't deserve love or that you're not enough in some way, pretty enough, handsome enough, whatever, then you're going to give yourself all the evidence in the world that is the case because of the funhouse nature of 3D reality. So congratulations, we're living in a holographic universe. Now, the thing to understand about that is that you're going to see evidence of exactly what you really think all the time.
Right.
Good, bad, and indifferent all the time. And so the reality that you live in is a result of those internal thoughts. And so like unraveling them and managing them and dealing with them in whatever way works for you is going to be the most important skill that you learn in your entire life.
Because, man, the thing about when you start going down that particular rabbit hole of negative thoughts and all that, why anybody who talks about any kind of thing like this always ends up back to these, type of principles, you can't avoid them because there is no life outside of what you're thinking.
It's all you.
It's all you. Right? But when you start going down that rabbit hole of insecurities and anxieties and you let that take over, what it does is that it shuts you down. And for the ladies, and Elizabeth likes to say all the time, the container, your anxiety shut down that container. They put,
collapses it.
Yeah, there you go. You can collapse it. It just, just think of, a store in the mall when they pull down that little chain link thing, they just shut it down. And so when you shut down that, of course, what starts to happen that we don't really think about is that when you're not getting substance, the hunger grows.
Yeah. And then your container leaks, so you can't hold anything. So you can't manifest anything and keep it in your life.
Right. So,
or whatever. I mean, so you're just keep being hungry and you like nothing satisfying. It's like watching, late night infomercials all the time and never actually watching anything good. Your just life sucks and you just wonder why you don't feel fulfilled and everything's going to hell, but nothing seems to ever improve.
Right.
That's the experience of like what happens when you do not find out new mental technologies to overcome the anxiety that we are wired to deal with.
Right. Because this is why what happens when you start thinking healthier, your shop opens back up for business. Like Elizabeth just said, it's when that's shut, nothing is coming in and you're leaking out. And so that is clearly a recipe for disaster. But even more so, we have to understand that when that hunger grows, and that fulfillment starts to mount and all of that happens, the thing about hunger is not going to go away. It's insatiable. It's not something that if you can just outlive it, you'll just stop being hungry. Right. It doesn't work that way. You will get it met one way or another. And then when that gets those breaking points, that's when you get the 2:00 in the morning phone call, ladies. That's when you see the thirsty comments and thirsty stuff happen on the internet that everybody talks about. All that is coming from this process.
Right. Exactly. And it's all coming from a place of unworthiness too.
Right.
When it comes to the mental things, not the hunger, but I mean, when it, physical hunger, not that specifically, but the place of not having your emotional needs feel like they are getting met, or not being able to meet them yourself, or not believing that you, in fact, have a potential to get what you want. Because if you don't actually believe that it's possible for you to have what you want, you're just going to wander around like a kind of an unfulfilled ghost,
and that's
trying to, get something, or like trying to scare people into acknowledging you.
And that's what we have. And that's what we have a generation of. We have a generation full of just starving people, starving ghosts, that don't know what to do. And so what do? And then we bring social media into this.
Oh, good. And let's look at each other being hungry. This is great.
Right. And this is where you have this online dynamic where you have people just so hungry trying to talk to each other. And then the guys are trying to get news from women, and the women are just trying to get some sort of connection going. Then you have that weird dynamic online that you're seeing. Right. Because this is what happens. And again, when you bring social media into this, you bring dating apps and all of this, this is where you get our fix culture. We have a fix culture right now. We're just going from fix to fix to fix. And we actually have a lot of technological advances that allow us to just continue to getting fix. If you can't get a guy to pay attention to you, you can just put yourself in a bikini and get a bunch of likes. Right. So we're substituting this almost like what do they call a supplement. But the thing about supplements is that you can't live on supplements, even though technically they have everything that you need, air quotes, from a vitamin standpoint. But try to just eat nothing but supplements for a week and see how you feel.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
empty. It feels empty.
Right. Because it's not a substitute. And we're trying to substitute our fix because it's safer. It seems safer. It's not actually safer, but it feels safer because when you're already insecure, when you're already feeling like shit, when you're already in that type of that downhill spiral, you're not trying to put yourself in any more danger. Right. And that's what the internet gives us. It gives us that screen. It gives us that buffer. And so it's almost like the perfect storm because you're having a generation of people who are really needing something legitimate, but they think the problem is that it's just not coming. Like it's just not available. Right?
Yeah, it isn't out there.
It isn't out there. No one likes me. No one wants to talk to me. No one wants to get to know me. No one wants to have sex with me. Whatever it is, whatever story you're telling yourself. And so when you believe what you're needing is something outside of you, and someone has to come and want to give it to you. My God, no wonder why we're in the position that we're in. Because just think about that. Think about what you're believing for. You're believing that somebody special is going to come along and just give you what you need whenever you need it for the next 50, 30, 40, 50 years. And we want to think that that's our ideal marriage. That's what love is to most of us, and we don't even realize it.
Oh, that's such a good point. It's such a good point because we hold people to a much higher standard than really makes any sense. And also we would never hold our friends to the same standard that we would hold our partner to.
Right.
Like if it's a friend, we're like, oh, well, maybe they got busy. If it's our partner, it's like, why are you busy? like what? How could you? And so not only that, but we're actively able to push away whatever good things show up with this anxiety.
Right.
Because one of the things that I say often is that like a man cannot soothe your anxiety about your relationship with him because it's not his job.
And every man who's tried to do this knows that is most
right. and he knows how crappy it feels to be like, no, sweetums, no, I still love you. Right. If I don't just tell her this right now, it's not going to work out. And I'm so tired of saying it, but it's true. But I'm so tired of saying, why is it like this? I keep telling her, and the thing is that you're going to the relationship to take. And you don't mean it like, oh, I'm going here to take, but you're trying to get a result out of the person that you're with. And it's male or female, it doesn't matter. But the mindset that you have to go there to go and like get something, like you're an ant that like goes to get food and then carries it away.
No, it's so true.
Rather than bringing stuff, like when you just bring you, and that, like, the sad part about it is that most of the time you is enough. Like, male or female, actually, you bringing you, really bringing you, like, all of your presence and everything that you have to contribute is enough. Like, it's plenty. It's like more than enough. But what people tell themselves is that they're not enough, and then they do all kinds of things to avoid showing themselves. So they don't, they get flaky, they don't show up, they don't bring the resources, they're afraid that they use too many resources, they withhold, they give too much and then get martyry about it. And all of this is because of unworthiness. So all of it is just because what you're telling yourself at the moment when you're going to be received is that whatever you had in there to offer isn't good enough. And that anxiety just is attached to that. Like, well, I'm unworthy. Like, next thing, like, I've got to perform for you. And if I don't, you're not going to like me. But if I do, then you're not going to like me. So what do I do now? Well, I don't know. I'm not weird.
Yeah, and this is where the term succubus comes from. It comes from this principle, the idea of just taking everything and just sucking it all up, but still not being satisfied, right. And needing to keep doing it over and over and over again. And no matter how much you bring in, it doesn't satiate. And honestly, an extreme example of this, I actually saw, I don't know if you saw this yet, Elizabeth, but I saw the documentary on HBO of that woman or that girl at the time, who kind of got her boyfriend did get her boyfriend to kill himself. Did you hear about that story?
Oh,
I think
God,
her name was,
but geez.
Yeah, I think her name was Michelle Carter, I want to say. And it was a pretty big story. And it came out because, they found out that, this kid killed himself. And then they found out the text messages between him and his girlfriend, who was Michelle Carter. And they found out that she pretty much, egged him on to do it, like literally egged him on to do it. And so
that's lovely.
Yeah. And there was this whole, there was a documentary on it on HBO, and they went through the trial and everything. But it was interesting because when they were kind of seeing her text messages, and it was just normal teenage girl text messages type of stuff, really. But initially, but the whole dynamic was interesting. I think it would be interesting for people, especially in our line of work, to really kind of look at that. But the one thing they said in the documentary was just like, no matter what we did for her, like no matter how much like we tried to like be her friend or be cool, like it was just never enough. Like no one could fill her bucket. Like there's nothing we could do. Like she was just so hungry for something that she actually already has. See, that's the problem with this principle.
Oh God, yes.
We're trying, the unworthiness has us thinking that we keep needing something that we don't have. And so this is where we're getting in trouble. The only reason why we get so, the way we get so hungry and so grabbing, so needy with other people, because we're trying to get them to give us what we don't think we have.
Right.
Or if nothing else, doesn't feel like we have it. And so when you're in that place where it doesn't feel like you're getting something that you truly need, then naturally human nature, just pragmatism says, I need to go get it. And I'm going to go get it from somebody who I think has it. Right. Whether that be a man, a brother, the thing doesn't even matter. You can put whatever you want in that space because it probably is going to be different for everybody. Right. And so when you're in that position where whatever it is you're needing is out there, then that is the definition. I won't say really that's the definition, but yeah, that's really the definition of being a victim. Because a victim can't control what's happening to them. Right? That's why a true victim is somebody who's been victimized, as in something has happened to you outside of your control. Right? You couldn't stop whatever it is that's happened from happening. That's what makes you a victim in that moment. But how we've kind of almost brought how that looks like anyways in this arena when it comes to romantic relationships, that's the position that we sit in. And we can sit in that position forever because that is the ultimate position to be in. This is why some of the hardest things you can do for somebody in that position who's been in that place for a long time is they get what they need from somebody else actually. Because it's a completely new paradigm. Some of us have been in this position for so long, for so many years of thinking that it just needs to come. It just needs to happen. That if it actually does, then we reject it. This is where self-sabotage comes in. That's what's so fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Because it'll show up one day. But your whole normal is it not coming? And so you almost end up putting yourself back into that position of needing it again because that's what you know. It becomes your familiar. It's
so hard to overcome this.
Oh my God.
Any level.
Any level. I'm talking any professional, psychologist, anybody in this arena in some form will tell you this is that thing. Because don't get me wrong. I could see it in myself.
Oh, me too. Yeah, that's why I'm like, yep, this is it. This is the last watershed. Like, if we could figure this out, man. But it takes continual work.
It does.
And it can take continual, frustrating, and painful self-examination. Like, oh, I'm feeling bad today. Okay, now, instead of doing all of, let me just pull out the list of coping strategies. Okay, let's go down the list. Okay, these are all going to be a bad time. Okay, let's go with one that is not bad. Okay, good. Got it. Next day. All right, we're here again. And then just continually conquering the fear and then doing the stuff anyway. None of this stuff is like, oh, let me just sail from success to success and I'll just reach new heights in a linear fashion and it's just going to look like a perfect upward, like a straight line. No, we think that that's the way it is, but that's never the way it is.
Never the way it is. And you can even see this in just the last 40, 50 years. You talk about the sexual revolution in our gender politics and our gender society, because what do women say all the time? I want to be an independent woman. We have songs about independent women. Why? Because it's so important for us to be self-sustaining. And
good men are self-sustaining.
Good men are self-sustaining. Like I said, we can have a whole, we can go down that road. But really, why I bring that up, why I think it's so important is because, again, when you're not self-sustaining, when you don't believe that's possible, because most people who are in this position of believing that they need something that's outside of them, the idea of being self-sustainable is it sounds like magic, right? It's so
Well, what's interesting about it is they most of the time claim that they are self-sufficient, but the real reality, when you actually talk to them and find out more about them, is that they don't actually think they can be alone and survive it.
Right. You don't think that you can, if this thing happens, it'll put you into a new place, a world that you don't feel at all capable of being able to handle or enjoy or whatever the case may be. This is why sometimes what they tell you in the Marines, when you go through Marine training, what are they constantly doing to those guys? They're constantly pushing those thresholds, right? Mm-hmm. Because you need to know that you need to go past that threshold of what you think, if I go past this, I'm going to die. And we're like, okay, we'll see. They're going to put you on there for 3 minutes. You can only hold your breath for 30 seconds because they need to get that fear of, oh my God, if this doesn't happen, they're trying to battle that instinct because they know that instinct will get you killed. It'll get your other Marines killed because it is that strong and it is an instinct. And so they don't teach it to you by just telling you to get over it. They'll throw you in the water, put a rock on, tie your legs
Same
up.
with life too.
Exactly. And so many of us, sometimes this is why I say so many, oh God, your breakup, your worst heartbreak can be the best thing for you. Just simple fact that it finally pushed you over that edge of where you thought where you could not have gone. When you survive something that you don't think you could survive, that should be the catalyst for you truly being able to have a new life. If you're going to go through something horrible, at least make it work for you. That's my mentality. Because I can't control most of what happens to me. I can only control my response to it for the most part. And so anytime life has thrown something at me that been really, threw me off kilter, mm-hmm. and I survived it, it gave me something that's invaluable. Because I saw something or I did something or I was exposed to something that I would have told you if that would have happened. I don't know. I would never have put myself in that position. But yes,
right.
Life gets you close to the cliff, and you're just like, all right, well, as long as we're cool here, and then just throws you off. And
Yep. Every time.
And it's important for us to go there. This is why, again, even when we train our soldiers, our most, people that we trust to protect our freedom, this is why we train them this way, because this is such a important part of being able to really be in a self-sustaining, happy, I'm not necessarily talking about for the soldiers, but just for the simple fact of being in a position where you can start to actually live a life of choice. Because so many of you are not choosing anything. Your fear is. You're not choosing whether to go to that party or not. Your anxiety is. You're not choosing whether you didn't want to go to that baseball game. You went to get pictures so you can get a fix on Instagram. Right? Again, I'm not judging at all. I just understand how it works. I've been in this long enough to see that a lot of us are making decisions. We're not actually making the decisions. Our fear, our anxiety, our needs, all of those things are making decisions for us. And we're just kind of going along. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's just the part of the process. And again, it's terrifying because we know that living like this it has a limit, it has a ceiling, right? There's limitations. We can only go so far. But I'm telling you, we will walk in this wilderness for 40 years. Just simple fact that the idea of the promised land is a good idea, but because it's so unfamiliar, because I know how to, Egypt, this desert might be terrible, but at least I know what it is.
Right. And also my concept of it is that this is not paradise already.
Right.
I have a good example from a business example. So this person that I respect, who's written several books and is a leader when it comes to internet marketing, was talking about meeting, I think Richard, I'm going to butcher his name, but a really famous investor. And he was talking about how the guy works an hour a day and then he plays with his dog and then he goes to the beach for a little while. And then the afternoon, he spends all afternoon writing books, right? And he's written some great number, like 20 or 30 books or something like that. Now, this person that is discussing how he's like, this is the life I want, man. This is great. He works 1 hour a day and he does this. And he's like, I just really that's, I have to perform for the man. I can't really do that. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, why not? You literally have written several books that I'm aware of and probably more than that. And also, why not? You're a rich man in America. You could take your millions that you've already made and just go and do that. Nobody's stopping you from doing that, or except for the idea that that's not what you're already doing. Because I bet you that he probably writes books for all afternoon, and he probably considers those to be work. But what he's saying to himself is that he has a different life than this other person, and that's the new promised land. This is what I want now. Well, if that's what you don't think that you already have, but an outsider would be really fooled if they went in and looked at your day. It's interesting that you've then said to yourself, I guess what I need in order to do this is $270 million. All right. You don't actually need any, you could do all of this on, $2,000 a month, but you just would be unhappier about it, is the bottom line.
Right. Yeah. We didn't get an enough setting,
no.
in our
perfect. I'm all set. We don't have that. No.
Right. That's something that's not firmware. That's got to be software. We gotta install the enough. We've never been told what's enough.
And even if we were told what's enough, it wouldn't mean anything to us. Because when you're in that hungry state, like you were talking about, you're just going to keep telling ourselves oh, there's another mountain to climb. And, by golly, I think there is myself. So I'm certainly not, above this because, I just launched a thing and I'm I want to launch it again, bigger, let's do it. And it's not even done yet. And I'm really enjoying this process, but I'm well, let's think about the next 6 months and how we need to expand and all of this. And just enjoy the dang moment. It took you a really long time and it was really hard to get here. Nope, you're going to enjoy that? No, you're going to. Okay, well, so this is as much for me as it is for anybody else that's listening. But it's really true that like just appreciating where you're at sometimes is really the most valuable thing you could be doing.
It really is. Because when you start to appreciate, you start to see what you actually have. You'd be surprised of how blinded you are to what's actually in your possession. Because if you asked yourself 5 years ago that you'd have what you have right now, you'd think you'd be good. You know, like you told me I would have, and that's the thing. It's such a perception issue as well. And that's what thankfulness does. That's what gratefulness does. It changes your perception because life is a perception. I mean, God is a perception. How I perceive God is how I can relate to him. This is why you can get sects of religious people who will blow up abortion clinics. This is why you'll have people who will vote a certain way because it's a perception. How do you see him? How do you see? I mean, because that's all I can work. When I meet people, I need to know how you see things because I know that's how you're going to behave. It doesn't matter really what's objectively true.
Because actually we can't actually say what's objectively true if you look at it in a more granular way.
Exactly. Really can't. That's all I said. That's a whole other conversation itself too. But, but at the same time, let's flip the hunger, or let's explore another arena or another element of the hunger issue. Because I remember watching, it's called Life of Pi. I believe that movie.
Oh God, that's a tough movie. Yeah, I saw that movie. I had to like read on commentary to understand it at the end because I'm just not that. I did not get it.
Yeah, it was very interesting movie. It's one of those movies.
Very interesting movie.
I wish I would have read the book. I still haven't read the book. I wish I would have read the book first, but I thought the movie was really good, and I thought it was very interesting. You know, because I like deep stuff and stuff like that. So, but,
as deep as you can get in movie format, in my opinion.
But there was this line in that movie that I still think about today, and it's still a really important quote for me. And it said, and I remember he was in a situation, and he said that hunger will change everything you thought you knew about yourself.
Oh God, that's perfect for that movie too, because that whole movie's about hunger and desire,
right? And how you battle with that. How do you manage that? And a lot of the, except without giving away, but how the different elements and the animals and the different things he had to deal with was just a management of something that he couldn't completely disconnect from. See, it'd be nice if we could just put the hunger on the shelf. Yeah,
we're not going to worry about this today. We're just going to, let's go meditate.
But they said hunger will change. When he said that, he was in a position in which he was a vegetarian, and long story
doesn't last.
Yeah, doesn't last because essentially he was shipwrecked, and so he ends up in this lifeboat with just him and a bunch of animals. Right, like one's a tiger, one's like a baboon. Just a couple. It ends up just being him and this tiger. But he was a vegetarian. Obviously, as days went on, he needed to eat, and so he ended up eating fish. Right. And it was funny. It was funny, but it was interesting because he realized that obviously when it got to a certain point, he was willing to do anything. There's even another quote that says, hard times will make a jackrabbit eat hot pepper. That's usually the old folks say stuff like that. But it's just the point is we'll take it from the side of what happens because you will get hungry. I don't care who you are, because I don't want to make sure that we're not talking about this like there's some way to avoid this.
No, it's not. Nope, not that I've noticed. I'd be happy to research it longer too.
Right. And this is why I won't say I'm never impressed with people anymore, but I don't pedestalize people anymore. I don't care what you are. Not because I can't respect what you've done or your accomplishments. I just know that you're a human being and there's something that you're hungry for. I may not know what it is, but if I'm around you long enough, it'll slip out, because that's the thing about hunger, because you can only hide it for so long. If you can be like, say, most of us are cool if we haven't eaten in a couple hours, like, okay, I'm starting to feel it, but I'm good. But hour 9, 10, you're going to start getting irritable. You're going to start being short with people. I mean, the signs will come out. That's how we're talking about just natural hunger, right? So why it's important to kind of take this hunger thing from the point of realizing that you will go through, and usually there's at every stage in life, there's something that you are not getting that you probably need. or is
right.
probably a
But you're seeking at that time.
That you're seeking at that time. It's almost like that thorn in the side. And there's almost like a biblical principle as well. But there's this principle of giving, like God gave this guy a thorn that was, because if you think about a thorn, it's irritating. It's not unbearable. Right. But it's irritating enough to where you're going to be consistently aware of it. Right. And I think that's a great example of kind of what hunger is like when you're kind of in that place. And this is why fasting is so important, because you need a reference point for that feeling. Because most of us, we don't have a reference point for hunger. We don't have any kind of familiarity with it. It's shocking to your system because your body is literally saying, we're going to die. When you get put in that survival mode, you can hook you up to a machine and all your little brain things are going crazy, right? Because our body has that natural survival mode. This is why, again, how we survived. And so when you understand that, because so many of us think that I'm going to be happy once I get it all. Right?
You're not.
Or if nothing else, not all at once.
I think this comes up every single show. You're absolutely right, though.
Right. Because to me, it's, as you learn by now, I'm a foundational person.
Yes, absolutely. Me too. Me too. Because we're not going to get anywhere with all these breakups. Like, that's why I'm in, that's why I'm almost in like broken up, like messy relationship land.
Right.
Because it's hard. And because people have the biggest growth there. And you don't learn when everything's going great, you're not learning the fundamentals. Because nothing's going to, make you study harder than pain.
Absolutely. Nothing will get your attention more than that. Most likely you don't even go to whoever you go to listen to until something like that happens.
No.
It's just, the way it is.
Yeah, you're going to find me on like the darkest day. When you were like Googling things that you're embarrassed to be Googling, that's when you're going to find me. Right. So if that's where I'm going to live and that's where I'm going to work, like here we are with these standards.
Right. And see, this is why my friend's a firefighter, and I couldn't be a firefighter. I couldn't be a policeman because I don't like coming in after the problem.
Okay. Yeah, you were talking about this. Like we're dealing with the problem kind of human.
Right. This is what so great about
Elizabeth. I am an emergency room human.
Elizabeth will get in a fight with you. Let's go. Let's, that's not me. I'm not going to lie. That's not me. Because I don't have patience for it because I'm frustrated by the fight. I'm frustrated because I see what could have been prevented, and that's where I focus on. And again, this is why it's so important because you need to know what your element is.
Yeah,
when you're
absolutely.
talking about what your arena is, what you care about, because you can love music, but doesn't mean you should be Rihanna. There's thousands of different jobs that can put you in the position to do what you love. But American Idol proves that we don't get this yet because 95% of those people should not have been doing that. Not because they're bad people, but no one told them, like, look, you just, I get that you love this, but you
sound bad,
you don't sound good. This is not for you. You're not going to,
you're going to have to either like spend 50 years sounding better or whatever.
Right. This is just not where your talents lie, but doesn't mean you quit doing music. There's thousands of other things you can do in this arena, that can allow you to work with music. Right. And you could be a terrible voice, but a great songwriter, and songwriters get paid. You know what I mean? The whole point is that you got to find your element, and specifically because you don't know what's specific to you. But I digress. But what I'm saying is that I want you to, I'm trying to get it right before we start building the house, because if there's anything that's going to get me irate is for us to have to build this house and then have to tear it all down and read. Like, to me, this is why I know I don't get in a fight with you. Go to somebody else for that. I want to make sure that I'm tired of all these breakups. I'm tired of all this nonsense in our generation. I'm tired of all this, this ridiculousness and this game playing and this foolishness, that's so unnecessary, just unnecessary stuff. Just people just playing around and not taking, I don't want to say that, but we need to take this more seriously. We need to take ourselves more seriously, not in that, you're so important, but this is going to catch up. We're not as young as we think we are.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been told that we're the young generation, new generation coming up, and all this for so long. That
we're like almost 40 now. Like,
right,
I'm not sure why.
Right, but we're still acting like we're children. We're
right.
still approaching so many things like we're kids. Like somehow, this stuff isn't real life anymore. And there's a lot of buffers that are kind of keeping us. But some of us are not, or have gotten hit already. Some of us have gotten hit for our foolishness. Some of us are starting to realize that people that are going to Elizabeth are starting to realize, like, look, this isn't working. Right? And you're starting to panic a little bit. And that's the thing about this. It goes back to anxiety. When people start to panic, we don't make great decisions when we're in that mode.
No, we don't. And the other thing about it is that you get what you earn, too. And we've forgotten that because we can look over at a lot of other people who've worked really hard and say to ourselves, well, I can see their end point. So I can see that they've managed to do it. So it should be so easy if I just copy them. I mean, and copy in a ethical way. I mean, just, if I just go with their method, I should be able to get that right. And they didn't get it because they have the perfect method. They have it because they were willing to work through all of the shit that they had to work through in order to get there. It wasn't because their version of the map was perfect.
Right.
It wasn't because their 75-step plan is the way and the light for you. It's because they earned it. And it's the same with relationships. Even though it seems like we should just be able to waltz over, and then we should just have stuff happen to us, like Robert mentioned. And then, it's just going to all appear. And when it does appear, it's amazing. But there's a lot of work that all went in when you were wandering around the forest for 40 years.
Right.
And so, legitimately, it's easy for us to say, it should be easier. Why wasn't I better? Why wasn't it easier? Why didn't it go quicker? Why am I not already there? Well, you're not already there because there is no there, actually. This is it. This present moment is all that you really have. So, that's not a very uplifting message, but
it's an important one. We need to know the harvest is ready now.
Right.
See, if you don't think, because we're always putting it ahead of us. We're always putting our deliverance ahead of us. We're always putting our promised land ahead of us. We're putting everything ahead of us because we expect it to feel a certain way.
Right. You have to feel that way first. That's the secret. You feel that way first, and then it all appears. But not because you're not working for it, which is the weird paradox there.
Right. This is what's so hard because no one thinks they're in their promised land right now. Nope. But you have to be, if no one's there, then what are we doing? You know what I mean? Because you can hear celebrity. I mean, this is why we're always so shocked when we see celebrities kill themselves or anyone rich or famous or anything like that. And they're unhappy.
How dare they?
Right. When we find out.
Perfect. I thought it was perfect.
Right. When we find out some of the most beautiful women on the planet are single in their 50s and 60s. Right. Because somehow you've escaped something. Because you're pretty, right? But this is what's so important about understanding that it's ready now. Whatever it is happening now. It can only happen now. Nothing can happen in the future, right? Because whenever it happens, it will be your current. It will be your now. And so you have to understand that whatever it is that you have to look, because when you look at it, that you're in the now moment. That it's happening now, you act. You're going to act. You're going to prepare because you believe it's already happening. Most of us want to know, I want to know he loves me first before I, really get involved, let him, get my feelings involved.
Over here. Let him anywhere near me.
Right. I want to know she likes me before I ask her out.
Right. I want this sure thing to be a sure thing. And then when I know it's a sure thing, I'm going to quit pursuing it because who cares about that anyway?
Right. And this is how we function. And it's crazy. It's when you think about it, I mean, it makes sense. It's human nature, but it's still crazy. It's insane the way
wacky beings.
Yeah. And it's like Elizabeth was just saying, like we're so shocked that it involves work because Cinderella didn't have to work. You know what I mean?
Well, but the thing is, she did, and we just gloss right over that. Well, we just gloss over it.
Because the movie didn't start until she was about to get out of the house. Right.
But she spent her whole life working for her stepsisters and being miserable.
Exactly. And this is exactly why.
But that wasn't fun to show. Like if we show 20 years of her on her knees cleaning the floors, it's not really that cinematic. Like there's no climax. It's just day in and day out of pain. Like nobody wants to watch that movie. But nobody also wants to watch Utopia either.
Exactly. Because there's something about the process that is the most human part of this experience.
Yes.
I mean,
so I trust perfect people because they're not perfect and we know it.
Right. Because we know that's not, but we know that's not authentic. We know there's something off about that because we know life is not going to be perfect and you need someone who knows what to do when things don't go right. What do you think is so attractive about men who are competent? Because I know that you can, if something goes down, you will be able to step up in that moment.
Yeah.
And this is what's so important because, like I said, all of our movies, our romantic movies, all this stuff, we look at it and we don't get the story doesn't start until the end. Technically, even though the movie seems to go through 3 phases, there's that whole 20, 30 year period of their life that we don't, because no one wants to see it. No, they don't make movies about process.
Right. Like that's why we don't know what happened to Jesus for 30 years.
Right. Exactly. Because he understood the process. Oh God, that's such a great point. Because that's exactly it. You know, we come to the story halfway, and we're just like, well, they just came in. He just came in and became Jesus. You know, in 3
right?
years.
Like that was it. You know, and then it's all over. Like,
right? But no, everyone's going to have a wilderness. Everyone is going to have some sort of dry place that they have to go through because that's where you learn. That's where you learn to hone yourself. That's where you learn to balance yourself. That's where you mature. When you can go without and it not move you.
Right. And during that time, you're doing dumb stuff.
Yes.
You're doing really dumb stuff. Like dumb stuff.
This is why I'm not hard on celebrities because I understand that because we get to go through our dumb stuff period privately,
right?
For the most part.
and also our generation, like we had no social media when we were 21,
right? So you didn't
thank goodness,
thank God, because you didn't get to see any of my mess. But
yeah, me too, because it was a mess. I mean, it was not my goodness.
All right. So,
I mean, maybe MySpace, but it was harder to be a weird on MySpace.
But you know, some of these people have been celebrities since they were 12 years old. You know, so you got to go through all your normal that everybody goes through, but you got to everything that you do wrong gets put online. And so, look, no one is escaping anything. But if you try to avoid the process, of course, you're not going to get anything good because that's where the good happens. And again, because you're right. When you look around, you see your best friend just got married. You're thinking, well, she didn't have to go through any process. Why? Because your process is so obvious to everybody else.
Well, and also you just gloss over the 5 breakups that you guys talked about for like the last 10 years. You know, like, great. Like she finally,
last 3 guys that cheated on her. You know, all that seems to be forgotten.
Right.
Right. In those moments. But yes, you're going to get what you put into it. Like life doesn't work any other way. And anytime people get something they didn't earn, like the lottery, this is why 75% of lottery winners go broke within like the first year or the 2 or 3 years. Now we're not talking about 75% go broke just over the span of time, just in the first year, because that's what the process teaches you how to manage the money. But when you avoid that, this is why it's not good to just give poor people money, because if you go through it, this is the whole point of Jesus, because the first Jesus was Adam, and Adam was born a man and he messed up, right?
Immediately.
And so God thought like, this is not good. So the next time around, I'm going to let him be a child and go through the process because I see now that this isn't good when we just, voila, here you go. Here's a car, figure it out. It doesn't go well.
Humans are kind of slow learners.
Right. This is why you go through your periods and you're going through what you're going through with what you're going through. You like who you like right now because that's where you are. Whatever you're liking right now, it represents where you are.
Right.
And this is what's so important about this because no one's like, why they gotta do this to me? You didn't do anything to you. You're the one
You're doing it to you.
You're doing it to you. No one put this. This is not back in the day. No one's putting a shotgun to your head. No one's chosen you or is forcing you to choose anybody. It does not work that way anymore. Anybody that you're bringing into your life, you're allowing into your life. And so if you're not liking what you're attracting or even what you're attracted to, let it be a map for you. Let it be a locator for you. Now you know where you are. I'm attracted to this and this isn't good. You know what I mean? I mean, again, I know this is probably naive for me to think that people in a mass are going to be able to think like this, but it's not so much that's the point. The point is that are you willing to put in the work to get to where you're wanting to go? Are you willing to just say, I'm tired of avoiding the process? Are you tired of avoiding the process? Some of you are magicians. Anytime that process starts to sneak up on you, you recognize it and you avoid it immediately. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I'm very familiar with this.
Right.
Like it's like a fun house mirror situation. Like, okay, let me just go do some weird mundane task that wasn't important until I felt the fear. Right. Like, oh, now it's time to, reorganize my domain names or something ridiculous.
Exactly.
There was a copywriter, or there still is, he's still alive. His name's Joe Sugarman, and he did blue blocker sunglasses. But he did a talk where he was discussing how he didn't really think that people were real entrepreneurs until they had like made $1 million and then lost $1 million and then gotten it back.
I guess I like that.
Yeah, like because like in his opinion, and he wasn't being he didn't have like an elitist sound when he said this. It wasn't like, okay, you guys are all scum. It was more like, well, it's just that we don't always do a good job. He's like, I'm more of a failure than anybody else in here, but that's why I'm in here.
Right. Because
of the failures, because of all the stuff that you didn't see that was all made this possible. But without all of that, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't even be talking about this.
And that's exactly it. And you hear that time and time again. It's like the biggest people are also the biggest failures because they understand there's certain things I've learned this personally, especially with women. That's the one thing I did do well when I was younger. I needed to know. Like I wasn't just going to sit there and be like, I wonder, like she's out of your league. Well, we're going to find out, because I got to know. Like I got to know. And so what's that saying? You don't know how far you can go until you go too far.
Right. Well, and that's good because lots of times we stop right at the flinch. Like, I don't remember who wrote the book, The Flinch, but the idea is that like right at that point where we just stop right there. And I'm familiar with that process.
Again,
very familiar with
it. And we all should be familiar with this. All this stuff should be something that you should all be able to relate to because this is what life is about, man. This is what all it can be about. Like Elizabeth said, whatever it is you're trying to get to, once you get to it, you're going to want something else. You've never wanted the same Christmas present 2 years in a row, right? No matter how badly you wanted it.
Unless it's food, and then you want it again because you already consumed it.
Right.
Like
it's insatiable. No matter how hungry, no matter how much you eat today, you're going to need to eat again tomorrow. Uh-huh. And so when it comes to understanding our hunger and understanding what role it does play, because it does have a role and it's an important role, because you're going to want to marry somebody who has control over their hunger. Because what it looks like when somebody can manage it well, it looks like they never have it. And this is this is what can mess so many people up. What messes up so bad. Because we watch professional athletes, they make it look easy. Right?
Yes, they do.
Anyone who does anything, you just made a phone. I can make a phone. Well, there's a lot of companies trying to make an iPhone. None of them can do it.
Right.
They have all the specs. They know exactly how to do it, but for some reason they can't make a successful phone like an iPhone. Why? What's different? Why is there? These are the type of things that you learn in the process. It's those small little. That's what makes a director a great director, because they care about the little things, because they went through the process and realized how important the little things were.
Yeah, it's really true.
So, all right, I think that's good.
Yeah, I think it was great.
No, I didn't get enough of it, but man, I'm telling you, man, it's just like hunger will change everything you knew about yourself. What you thought you would never do, you will do if you get hungry enough. I promise you. You know, if you don't check this, it will lead you into getting married because you just don't. I mean, people, when you think about your own life, just leave you with this. Think about some of the worst decisions you've made. I promise you probably made them because you were hungry. You were hungry for something. Settling. And whatever it is you were hungry for was legitimate. It's just you got into a place where you couldn't, you had to have something. And you know how horrible that felt? You know how horrible it does feel when you're in that position where you just feel so just powerless that you just need something. So this is where you see people putting themselves in positions where they're just taking anything and you know, it's the nastiest look and feeling ever. And you can tell when people are in that position, they're just putting up with something, and you're just like, man, you're just looking at them. You can tell they just have no power over it. They need it too bad. And it's like, man. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Well, there's nothing attractive in desperation.
No, there's nothing. We all want it. We all want people to be obsessed with us until we get it. Right? It's so funny. It's like, we think there's safety in that. We think that's security. Like, it's like, that's like, okay, if you're this obsessed with me, I can trust, like, you like me for sure. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. You know, it doesn't work. So many things that we think that we want, it doesn't work that way. Your reality is not your fantasy. So.
Absolutely.
I hope you guys got something out of tonight. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking the time out again to come in and hang out with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate you as well. I always have such a good time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Again, you can go to our website, the OrionGroupPodcast.com. But other than that, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night or day wherever you are in the world, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Robert.